Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
Happy Thanksgiving, my friends, and welcome back to podcast 70 of 2019. Can't believe it's Thanksgiving already. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can follow me on Twitter at OBKiev. Follow us at The Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media as well, /The Odds Breakers. There'll be some Thanksgiving plays posted on our Facebook and possibly YouTube. This episode is being brought to you by mybookie.ag for a 50% sign-up bonus. Please visit MyBookie. Use the promo code TheOddsBreakers. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor our podcast, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member. For $17.99 a month, you can have my plays and premium plays before the line moves. For $2 more, you can get all that and become a patron subscriber. Also get the podcast a little bit early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. Turkey Day is upon us, and you know what that means, football and relaxation. So we definitely have a lot to cover today. We had some questions, and I'm going to go over one of them from a listener about the STAR system. It's basically called the Kelly criterion. And this is from at Dogman1981 from Jason. Asks about the STAR system. Basically, it's made for a couple different reasons. People go through their bankrolls quickly if they have losing weeks, if they don't have proper bankroll management. Okay. Even the best sports bettors will sometimes have a 2-13 week. Looking terrible, even though they had about 7 or 8, 10-4 or 10-3 weeks, they'll have a bad one. It happens. Some people that are new to sports betting will just add on what they won to their next bet. I mean, you're literally almost flipping coins, seeing that the best sports bettors are 56 to 60% profitable. So basically, the Kelly criterion means you should only make 1% of your bankroll. If you have $10,000, you should only bet $100 for a 1-star or 1% bet, and never over $500, which would be a 5-star bet. If you have $100, it should be $10 to $50. Okay, it's just the way it should be. And if you have $100, it should be $1 to $5. And it's the ebbs and flows of sports betting, especially if you're doing it all year. Now, if you go to Vegas for one weekend, you bring, a couple $1,000s to kiss goodbye because it's spending money, then do what the hell you want. That's for fun. But if you're going to sports bet every single week and you want to be profitable in the long term, this is the way to do it. The reason for the STAR system is because we all know that some plays you're going to be more confident about than others. And, if I'm really excited about betting a side or a total over another game where I'm just a little excited, I want to put more money on it because that's your edge. It's your percentage above 50% is what kind of you're betting on. I wrote a sports betting article on theoddsbreakers.com called Sports Betting 101. And so check that out if you have any more questions about how I manage my bankroll and how to actually, the ebbs and flows about sports betting and kind of how to look at the percentages and realize when it's a bet and when it's not a bet. It's probably about a half an hour read, and you should be able to get a lot of information from that. And feel free to tweet me at OBKiev or tweet us at The Odds Breakers to if you have any more questions about that. But that's the way I do it. And to be honest with you, it's extremely rare for me to have a 5-star bet. I know you see a lot of people do 5%ers, and that's fine. It's the way they do things. But for me, I need like a super edge. Like I need to know something that the line makers don't know that's significant. 4-star bets are pretty rare for me. 2 stars, probably the most common. And there's 3 stars, kind of a high bet for me. So that's the way I do it for our premium clients. And it's the way I enjoy doing it. And it's the way I've always been doing it since I started sports betting in the early 2000s. All right. Next topic we have is the college football championship. Well, playoff breakdown is kind of interesting. It's nice to see that the Big Ten has 6 teams in the top 25 leading the SEC, because the SEC has 5 teams in the top 25. Wisconsin has Ohio State, Penn State, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa. I think I said Wisconsin twice. SEC, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and Auburn. I guess people say Texas A&M should be in there, but they can't win a big game. Big 12 has 4 teams: Oklahoma State, Baylor, Oklahoma, and Iowa State. Pac-12 has 3 teams. 2 are very tough: Oregon and Utah, and then USC is just kind of coming on. American Athletic Conference even has 2 teams: Cincinnati and Memphis. The ACC's got 2 teams: Clemson and Virginia Tech's been playing awesome. I thought it'd be Virginia this time of the year, but no, it's Virginia Tech. The Mountain West has Boise State, Independent has Notre Dame, and the Sun Belt coming up with Appalachian State. And they're damn good. And I wish they never lost to Georgia Southern. I wish they were undefeated. We hit that season win total already over 9.5 games with Appalachian State. But the conferences that suck are the MAC and the Conference USA for sure. They don't have any representation in the big dance. So unfortunately for them, they're the worst conferences for sure. That doesn't mean you can't find value betting on them. So I got to tell you, Harbaugh, big game for him this weekend. And I'm not going to feel sorry for him if he loses, And the way he ran up the score against Notre Dame for no reason. When you saw Notre Dame kind of give up with 6 minutes left, they started running the ball. Then Harbaugh passes the ball after the next possession, just running up the score. Kind of lost a little respect for him. And if he loses this weekend, I'm going to I'm probably going to play the that little Ice Cube soundbite that you guys heard recently if he gets his ass kicked against Ohio State. So we'll see what happens, but that line is kind of interesting. And moving into college football, being that I will be going solo today, I want to just, kind of cover all the games, not all the games, not every game, but some of the big games here. And then obviously give you my plays for college football, week 14. And then we'll get into the NFL as well, a little bit of the slate there, and give you my plays for the NFL week 13. And of course, sharp line movement. Starting out on Thursday, we have a college football game, the Egg Bowl, Mississippi at Mississippi State. And this is not exactly a huge home field advantage for Mississippi State because, there's going to be fans of both teams at this game. The spread right now is a juiced -2.5 for Mississippi State. And I'm eyeing this one up here very hard because I'm not loving Mississippi State and Joe Moorhead anymore here. They don't have some great players either. And Mississippi has kind of been an ATS darling. And the last, 4 or 5 games, as a matter of fact, throughout the year, Mississippi is 7-4 ATS, and Mississippi State is 4-7 ATS. So against the spread, Mississippi looks like a good play. I'm going to wait to see if a 3 pops personally, and if a 3 pops, I will be on Mississippi this game for sure. So, kind of keep your eyes open for that. I also like how Mississippi has gotten better, and it doesn't really seem that Mississippi State has gotten better this year. Mississippi, the last few games, they had a hard schedule. They had Auburn 3 weeks ago. They lost only by 6 points. Then they destroyed New Mexico State by 38. Then they lost to LSU, but was able to put up 37 points against LSU. I like that. Before that they had Texas A&M and lost by 7. Bad game against Missouri, but that was a while ago. This team has gotten better. Mississippi State, on the other hand, they beat a crappy Arkansas team. Big deal. They lost to Bama. Even after Tua went out in the first half, they couldn't score anything in the second half. Lost 38-7. Then they played Abilene Christian. So they haven't exactly showed me anything either. They lost to Texas A&M by more points, by 19 points. Yeah, Mississippi might be a play for me. Virginia Tech's a huge game. There's actually a premium play on this one, but I will tell you this, that Virginia Tech is the team that's been trending up, and Virginia is the team that's been trending down. But I'd be very careful here. This is usually a pretty hard-fought game on both sides. As you know, it's a big rivalry, so, tread lightly here. And when you power rate this game, just kind of remember this is also going to be a little bit more of a mixed field as well. Iowa versus Nebraska is an interesting game. Nebraska had that huge win, but then you got to remember it was only Maryland. Maryland's been getting their asses kicked by everybody. Okay, and Nebraska needed one of those games to get it right. Iowa, on the other hand, kind of keeps beating down the lower teams and barely losing to the big teams. That's just how Iowa is. But what do you consider Nebraska? A lower team or a bigger team? You're going to have to ask yourself that. West Virginia versus TCU. That spread keeps climbing up for TCU. Not a great spot for West Virginia. They're missing a bowl game. TCU can make a bowl game with this one. High spread right now. We have, might be a play on that one, Washington State versus Washington. We have the huge game here. This thing went past the 6, went past the 7. I mean, it was at 6.5, and now it's at 7.5. Washington State got their asses beat by Washington, and they seem to always do it, but it seems to always be bad weather and rainy when this happens. This Washington team is not as good as they were. And so this is now starting to trend towards a play for me for Washington State because it's past the 7, and there's going to be some Cougar fans in Seattle, well, in Washington, for this game. You know that. And so Pullman kids will be coming out there. A lot of people went to Washington State, live in Seattle, so there's going to be a good fan base, and I think there's a very good chance that this is a lot closer than 7.5. And those are a lot of great Friday games here, so real happy about that. And I kind of just went through some of those. Georgia versus Georgia Tech. I would not touch that game. It's been just stuck at 28. I mean, look ahead spot for Georgia, yet Georgia Tech, are they going to care to try to play their rival? I think they will. They looked a little bit better against NC State last week than they have been. That's really interesting. I would love a close game. I would love it. Lean Georgia Tech. I'm probably not going to touch it like I just said, but I lean Georgia Tech on this game. We have Clemson versus South Carolina. Clemson's last challenge before destroying whoever they're going to destroy in the ACC championship game. Real exciting. Woohoo. South Carolina's so injured and terrible looking lately. I'll be hoping for a close game as usual. Indiana versus Purdue. This is another one to be careful about. Purdue looked, alive versus Wisconsin last year. Let's just say they looked alive, or last year. Indiana, they're just trying their asses off against the bigger teams, but now they have a rivalry game. How is Indiana going to do? Spread was 7. It's down to 6.5. I agree with that line move. I agree. Going down on that. I think this game is usually either a hard fought game or Purdue likely wins it usually. So yeah, this line went in the correct direction there. I would lean Purdue, and at 7.5, it would be a play for me if it goes back to 7.5 on the Purdue side here. Northwestern versus Illinois. This thing was all the way up to 11.5, and it's down to -8 now. So Illinois, I had this game kind of circled. I wanted to play it. I was thinking it was going to be like a 6-point spread or something, and the odds makers made it high. So a bunch of money came back on Northwestern, which pissed me off. But now Northwestern's going to feel disrespected, and you know how it goes. And the game's closer than people think, and yeah, not a play for me. And as a Big Ten specialist, I wanted to play this game, but ain't going to happen. 43.5 total. Can Northwestern do anything? I mean, their year is shot. Illinois can make a bowl game. Yeah, it's just something I don't want to touch. Let's move on to a better game. Then we have Wisconsin versus Minnesota. Wisconsin at about 2 to 2.5. It's bouncing all over the place. There's some 2s at 5 dimes. MGM's got some 2s. This game's going to bounce around a little bit, but we have a play on this to discuss a little bit later for you. Maryland, Michigan State. This is another one, 48.5 total, and Michigan State's favored by 22.5. Can Maryland do anything? I don't know. This looks like another shutout to me. Michigan State's kind of probably pissed off for having another bad season. And they're going to win this game. I just don't know by how much. I'm not sure if Maryland's going to score. So this is just one of those things. Could be 21-0. Could be 24-3. 17-7. Who the hell knows? It's another one of those games that just have high variances. I don't like those high variance games. Miami versus Puke. And wow, did Miami get their asses embarrassed by Florida International last week. Duke, they look terrible as well. And that's why Miami is road chalk at 8.5 points. Forget it. Forget it. Can't touch that game. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. Now, there's a game that's going to decide a lot of things. I mean, Oklahoma can be kicked right out of the college football playoff. They've been winning their games close, yet outgaining the hell out of people. Just some bad red zone efficiency, I guess. And their defense just kind of gives up sometimes when they're up. They better be taking Oklahoma State seriously. That's all I got to say. Because Oklahoma State has some firepower on that team. Right now, my line on this game is 11.5. Okay? My line is Oklahoma minus 11.5. But which Oklahoma is going to come out? The one that wants to get margin and prove they're a college playoff worthy, or the one that's looking ahead to their championship game? Another high variance spot. Not going to play it. Definitely worth watching. The over-under is at 69 right now. I think it was lower this week. I should have took it, but I lean over in this game. I lean over. Looks like points to me. Tulane versus SMU, and this thing keeps going down. SMU, I mean, they started out so well. I think they're 7-0 at one point, and then finally lost to Memphis, and then they lose to Navy last week. Their season's kind of crushed, but they're still making a bowl game. How motivated they're going to be able to finish off Tulane here when Tulane has a great rushing attack and SMU's defense is very shoddy. This is a lean to Tulane for me, and just a lean. Didn't play anything yet. And by the way, just because I haven't played any of these games that I mentioned yet doesn't mean that I'm not going to have plays on Saturday, because I always see what the line moves to. And sometimes it moves into a play, sometimes it moves off of a play. It's just the way it is. Oregon State versus Oregon, and I gave out that play. It's actually up to 19.5, so I gave it out at, 18.5, and now it's at 19.5. Money coming in on Oregon, and I just don't see it. I just do not see it. And yeah, I think I misspoke. It is a home game for Oregon, but still, Oregon State, they're going to be motivated here. I wonder how much motivated Oregon's going to have after being kicked out of the college football playoffs. That's not good. I wouldn't touch Oregon with your money. All right. Iowa State versus Kansas State. Oh, man. Kansas State, 5.5 points now. I think this was 3 at one point. Iowa's money just keeps coming in on Iowa State. I'm sorry, but I think Iowa State.
You are fake news.
It's fake news to me. They just haven't been showing it to me. They've had 1 or 2 great games, and the rest of them are close. Going against Kansas State at home is ridiculous. I think they're plenty motivated to win this game. This 5.5 is starting to look good to me. So just letting you know there, I didn't play this game yet. If I'm looking at my numbers here, let's do a quick calculation. I have Iowa State as a smaller favorite, like a 1.5 to 2 point favorite. So this being past a 3 makes this really close to a play for me. Now, 3s are less important in college than they are in the pros, but not that much less. So this could very well be a play for me, just to let you know. I'm going to keep watching this line. If this hits 6, it is a play for sure. And let's talk about the big dog here. Ohio State playing Michigan, and Michigan's kind of gotten it right lately. You know, Ryan Day, fantastic job at Ohio State after good old Urban Meyer left. Undefeated season. But here's one thing about Ohio State that kind of goes against them. They have not played one ranked team on the road. Okay? This was their road schedule: at Indiana early, before Indiana was anything, at Nebraska, at Northwestern. You know, remember that Friday game when Northwestern tried to grow the grass longer to slow down Ohio State?
Unreal.
Didn't work too well, did it? But anyways, then they go to Rutgers. All right. Now they did handle Wisconsin 8-7, handled them easily at home, beat the heck out of them by 31 points on a rainy day, which the rain should have favored Wisconsin. And then they obviously they beat a number 18 Cincinnati team, beat them 42-0. Because Ohio State's defense is top of the nation. You know, both their offense and defense is top of the nation. But you know, after that Rutgers game and benching people in the second half, and Rutgers came back, it looked a little bit less powerful. You know, this Penn State. It's just Penn State's a great team. Obviously, they're ranked number 12, but you know, they looked somewhat vulnerable. So I'm a little concerned about this. Yet my number on this game is Ohio State minus 11.5. Okay. Michigan, on the other hand, has been doing great lately. They have a 1.75 net yard per play. And that's after they had such a bad start. You know, the second half of that Penn State game, and ever since, beaten teams like Notre Dame 45-14, Maryland 38-7, Michigan State 44-10, at Indiana when everyone was on Indiana, including myself, 39-14. You know, they kind of turned it up lately, and this is why the look-ahead line was minus 13 2 weeks ago, and now it's 9.5 here. So my line says to bet Ohio State at 9.5, but it also says to come back at Michigan at 13. So, do what you want with this one. But at the same time, you got to remember Harbaugh does not win big games. This one's at home. He has an opportunity here. I just don't see the talent as much as I see it at Ohio State, and I'm not sure if I have faith in Shea Patterson, but I guess one thing that is going for Jim Harbaugh is that Justin Fields looked banged up. He looked banged up last game, and he took some serious hits. As a matter of fact, I saw his knee hit the ground, and he went to the sideline. I thought that could be something serious, and thank God it wasn't, because I want to see a good game here. I mean, if you're going to get injured, please get injured before the Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin, right? But in all seriousness, I'm glad that this is going to be a fantastic game. I just cannot wait to watch it. Nothing that you're going to bet too seriously. What's the total on this one? What did it move to? Ohio State, 50.5. Okay, that was at 53 before, 50.5. These big games are usually defensive minded, so I understand the line move there. But, at the same time, if you want to bet this one, I don't have a problem with you betting Ohio State, but I wouldn't bet Michigan at this number, even though this could be a close game if everything works well for Harbaugh. Texas A&M has a shot to upset LSU a little bit, but I don't think that's going to happen. 17-point dogs, road dogs, LSU poised. Anything can happen, though. If LSU can lose to Troy a couple years ago, they can lose to Texas A&M this year. But who's going to go against that train? LSU has been covering the spread extremely well this year. As a matter of fact, in covering the spread, they're started out great, but they're 6-5, and only because their spreads have eventually got inflated, So, from an ATS perspective, they started out 4-1 against the spread, and then they played that Florida game and just barely didn't cover it by a half point. Then they missed Mississippi State's cover by they hit the cover on Mississippi State. They missed the Auburn one. Then they beat Bama after the bye week, hit that spread. But the last two games were just really inflated. Mississippi 21.5 it closed at, and they won by 21, so close there. And then Arkansas, they let them back in the game, won by 36, and the spread was 39.5. So big deal. LSU. They're number one or number two. I mean, what can you say? They really are after beating Bama, and they deserve it. We'll see what happens if there's any shakeup coming up here this game or until they play Georgia. California versus UCLA. UCLA was favored higher. Now they're only favored by 1, and I think it's because the quarterback is back for Cal, and he had a really good game last Chase Garbers, that's his name I was thinking of. He had a really good game last week, beating Stanford. And the fact that he's back, tells me that he has a very good chance of beating UCLA here. They have a great defense over there. I love Justin Wilcox, and I actually like him more than Chip Kelly at this point, too. So there you go. And that's about it for the big games. Arizona State, I suppose, but Arizona State's 13-point favorites. I'm done betting Sumlin, hopefully for the rest of my life, but I'm sure I'll get suckered into it again with a juicy line. But at the same time, there's no way I could bet Sumlin in any of these games, even though they're probably the right side. Let's get right into my college football free plays for week 14. All right, we have UNLV versus Nevada. Nevada laying 7.5 points. Over under is at 52. Now, this is definitely a rivalry game here. And interestingly, UNLV fired their coach, Tony Sanchez, effective at the end of the season. Gave him the notice. One of those things in the mail that you really don't want. I'm sure it was phone call or something. But, this just means more motivation for the Rebels, UNLV, in my opinion. Nevada's a weird team this year, just very weird. They won some games that they probably should not have won and lost some games by a very large margin to slightly better teams, right? So margin's kind of the key to my handicap here. Whenever Nevada wins, it seems to be by 7 points or less, like teams, unless they're New Mexico or UTEP, of course. But the key for me is that UNLV has proven they can win some big games. They're motivated and beat Vanderbilt pretty well. You know, they played Northwestern most of that game for a while until they messed up. And then last week against San Jose State, they won outright in the last game at Sam Boyd Stadium. The yards per play is both equally bad. They're both about a net -1 to -1.2-ish yards per play. You know, nothing really telling there. Nevada's going to make a bowl game already. They have 7 wins somehow. Okay. While UNLV is playing this as their bowl game. This is their last game of the season. So I think the Rebels are going to do it for the coach, win one for the Gipper, and they're going to keep it close, if not win outright. I'm taking the 7.5 points as a 2-star premium shared play.
Oh, yeah!
Next game, West Virginia versus TCU. I guess we do have a play on this TCU. I have it at -13, over-unders 44, but I like this game to 14. I don't like betting large favorites against their serious motivation issues, so I did give this out at -12 to premium clients. TCU has every reason to go and win this game, but they need one more win to go bowling, while West Virginia is dunzo in that department. Okay, the Mountaineers, as we know, are finishing up a rebuilding year with their new coach, and it showed this year that they, had some good wins against Kansas State a few weeks back, but the NC State win doesn't really look that good anymore to me. They average about -0.6 net yards per play, and they cannot run the ball. TCU wasn't exactly a powerhouse this year, but they showed signs of being a good team, beating Texas by 10 points, hanging with Baylor, only a 4-point loss last week against Oklahoma. Gary Patterson should be able to exploit the weaknesses of Neil Brown's defenses here. I think with the quarterback's going to run and make some yards. Most power ratings have this about a 14-point spread. So mine actually had them at 14.5, but the motivation spot made this more of a play than anything, I think. So I took the TCU -12. I like it all the way up to 14, though, as you know. So there you go. 2.5-star premium shared play. Cash it. All right. Last game. Wisconsin versus Minnesota. Minnesota laying about 2 points when I wrote this up. Over under 47. So as a fan of the Badgers, I can honestly say I'm not a homer here, okay? I don't give out homer plays. I think I only gave out 2 plays the whole year. One on Wisconsin's side, one against them. I think I split actually on these. But there's some big reasons to be on the Badgers here. Very big reasons. And I got 5 of them. And you let me know what you think of it after the podcast. First, Wisconsin has had a much harder schedule than Minnesota. Minnesota's hardest game was playing Penn State at home, and didn't have to play teams like Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State like Wisconsin did. Okay, Sagarin has their schedule at 68 and Wisconsin's at 44. I think it's bigger of a difference personally, but there you go. Secondly, Wisconsin is a net 0.3 yards per play better than Minnesota. And this should be even larger had they had the same strength of schedule. Third, this game is going to be cold, rainy, and windy, which we know favors the running team over the passing team. Wisconsin averages 5.5 yards per rush over Minnesota's 4.2. That's a big discrepancy right there. Fourth, Wisconsin has destroyed their non-conference opponents, while Minnesota struggled to beat Fresno State in overtime, South Dakota State in overtime, and almost lost to Georgia Southern at home. Okay. Fifth, And maybe the most important key to this handicap is that it's a huge revenge spot for Bucky, losing the Axe at home last year to a motivated Gophers team. The Badgers were very hurt at that time, coming off an overtime win against Purdue. Flat out, they overlooked the Gophers last year. That is not going to happen this time. And I think the Badgers roll. I love this game under 3. My handicap as a power rating had this closer to a pick'em, but all these factors coming in made it, kept pushing the Badgers up. Now, if it gets to 4, 5, 6 points, I might buy back, but at the same time, Wisconsin taking them for a 3-star premium shared play at -2. And what I will say is that the reason it's not a 4-star play is because Wisconsin does tend to fumble the ball and turn it over. And Paul Chris does tend to be out-coached a little bit. So, like I said, for Minnesota, it's row the boat or sink the ship this week. And I think the ship is going to sink. I think we've had enough of them. And it is time for the Badgers to get blown out once again after this week by Ohio State.
Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass.
Before I get into the NFL, I just want to quick talk a little bit about college basketball. So it's been crazy out there. Absolutely crazy. I mean, unders are hitting at such a good percentage, as you heard Kyle say last week, 56% of the under, that people are just hitting the under numbers, and a lot of them are winning off it. There's going to be an adjustment, but I don't know when that is. If you are a guy that likes to get the numbers early, you probably could just bet a bunch of unders on some more mainstream games and then come back with the over. You're only sacrificing 4.55%. And you're going to be able to double up on many of those. So it's not a bad idea. It's not my style to do something like that just to chase. But, I usually do it if I have an opinion on that side. Kind of like, the number is going to go up and I think it should. Not just going in blind, but at the same time, that's an opportunity to cash in a little bit. So, just an idea out there for y'all. And I'll tell you this, it's just been absolutely crazy out there. The parity is so large. You have Michigan State that's been number 1 for so long. They have 2 losses. Duke, they lost at Cameron last night, and it was to Stephen F. Austin. It was in overtime. They stole the ball from Duke, got a layup in the last second. That was absolutely insane. You have Kentucky lost a game to, what was Evansville, I believe? Yeah, Evansville. Virginia Tech just got schooled by Dayton, and I gave that pick out. I thought Virginia Tech was the better team. And, man, Dayton just looks pretty good. That Obi Toppin kid is absolutely amazing. You got Purdue that lost a couple games. You have Villanova that lost 2 games already. Florida State has a loss. Seton Hall has a loss. Well, that was the Michigan State. Lots of parity this year. Pretty crazy. And I just think that it's good for the little team. So you're going to find possibly some value in those Dayton-type teams, the VCUs that are undefeated. You might find some value in those teams early, but probably not for too much longer here. So kind of maybe search through Torvik, Ken Palm, and take a look at some of those teams that are trending up and, ask yourself why and possibly put a little handicap on their next games. All right, well, let's get into NFL Week 13. And we have everybody playing because there are no more bye weeks. So I'm going to start right away with Turkey Day. I'm going to just kind of briefly cover the card and then give you the plays at the end here. You got the Bears against the Lions, and this thing was at pretty close to pick 'em at one point, I think Sunday night, Monday, and now it's all the way up to -4 because the Lions don't have a quarterback. Well, David Blow is going to start for them, and he played for Purdue, and I think he played for Indiana a little bit too. But he has zero NFL experience, and I know Mitch is terrible, but this is why the line moved so much. Now you're at the point where, do you even want to bet on the Bears, where their offense is so lethargic? They kind of struggled against even the Giants at home. So, the under's been hit already down to 37, but there's only two possible plays that you could make, and that's the Bears if you think they roll, or the under, because I just would not trust the Lions in this position here. The Buffalo Bills at the Dallas Cowboys. Man, I got to tell you, this handicap is tough because this line is exactly where I'd make it, between 6.5 and 7 here. The Cowboys are good at home, but they seem to only beat the easy teams. I don't think they beat anybody with a winning record, yet Buffalo is kind of fraudulent. If you look at their yards per play, it's not by any means better. Dallas has a huge yards per play, obviously, advantage there. They have the highest on offense, I believe 6.6 or something yards per play. There is a play on this game, though, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Another spread that seems very tough to me is Atlanta versus the Saints here. So, you got your total. It was at 49, and it's at 48.5, meaning it hasn't really moved in any direction, which usually tells you maybe it's right. There's still some questions for Atlanta on Julio Jones. I believe he's going to play. You missed this game. Devontae Freeman's probably back. You saw Atlanta beat the Saints in New Orleans, yet New Orleans is probably coming in pissed. The Saints are a better team. I think it's a perfect spread, +7 here. My power ratings have the Saints probably the 5th best team in the league, and then I have Atlanta pretty low. I have Atlanta literally 7 points worse. So with home field advantage, that should make the spread about a 4, and the spread is about a 6.5. So I guess I lean to the Falcons, but at the same time, how can you trust them with their defense being so banged up? So I'm just going to give you a lean in this game. I lean to the Falcons covering this spread. I can see the total going either way. I have zero lean on that because the Saints have such good defense. And, it's a division game. I wish that these spreads were a little bit better on Thanksgiving. So if you're going to play anything, what I would do is play a teaser, and I would play the Buffalo Bills +7 all the way up to +13 or +12.5, depending upon what you're getting. And the same thing with Atlanta. Tease both of the dogs in this position, and I think you're going to have better value than either trying to get a side here, because I believe these lines are sharp. When the lines are sharp, you might want to play a teaser. Green Bay versus New York. Green Bay's laying 6.5 points, and you wonder why it's not 7. Well, just like last week, look at the Packers' home road splits, and that's why the Packers should be able to destroy this team. And in this position, how they just got embarrassed, you think that they're going to destroy this team, but you don't know what you're going to get here. Total's kind of in that middle area too, 45.5. It tells me that there could be some points here, and it tells me that there also could be a little defense by Green Bay. So no lean really in this game for me. Washington versus Carolina. There is a premium play on that one, so I don't want to get into that game. Same with San Francisco versus Baltimore. But I will tell you this. That line's been bouncing all over. It was at 6 at +100. Now it's at 6 at -115. I think there's some people taking some sides on it. I would think that San Fran's probably the sharper side here. Tennessee versus Indy. Sitting at -2.5. Well, Tennessee's been showing up the last couple games. I don't have a play on this, but I'm thinking about playing the Colts. But T.Y. Hilton is re-injured. He didn't play a lot of snaps last game. And I'm just nervous to play the Colts without him right now to stretch the field. The Colts haven't exactly been blowing teams out. And Marlon Mack being out, I don't love that fact either. I want to play the Titans kind of like I played against Atlanta last week. But I'm just not there yet. I'm going to wait and look at a final injury report, do some more analysis here before I make a decision in that game I have till Sunday. Philadelphia versus Miami. And this is also, I have a play on this team as well. And a lot of people have been on Miami. Obviously, they've been covering the spread lately, except for last week. Maybe the last couple games here. The Miami, obviously, they wanted to prove to everyone that they're not that bad of a team, and they did that. But I just do not see why they should be winning games here. I'm someone that if you're not making the playoffs, you get draft capital. And it's true, yeah, first round picks don't always pan out. But that doesn't mean you can't trade down to someone that's desperate and get more picks. I like the fact that you call it draft capital more than actually a top draft pick in these situations. Tampa Bay versus the Jaguars. This is moving towards Tampa Bay's direction here. It was at +1. Now it's at a pick'em. I agree with the line move here, but it's also Jameis Winston. We got some money back on Tampa last week, and I just do not feel like betting on Tampa. I just don't feel like it. I got a little back from Jameis Winston's just awful pick sixes and things that completely screw him off being the right side, and Tampa Bay being off the right side of these plays. But now that I finally got some money back on them, I'm just going to completely avoid this. I know Tampa's the right side here, but I'm not touching it. The Jets versus the Bengals, and there is a play on this, so I'll get to that after I get through the card. Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. So you got Cleveland, and they lost Myles Garrett, but that didn't seem to stop them against Miami last week. Big division rivalry game. It's within the threes here. So I really don't want to touch it. Pittsburgh actually benched Mason Rudolph for Hodges, and Hodges seemed a little bit better of a quarterback to me. That could fire this team up, and they're sitting there at home dogs. I think the lean here to me is Pittsburgh, but Cleveland's been just one of those teams that looks great or looks terrible. I mean, hell, they beat Baltimore in Baltimore this year. They have a lot of talent, and it's a game I don't want to chance, but I'll tell you this, that over-under's at 39 points. I lean strongly to the under in this one, and that might be the way I play this game. LA Rams versus the Cardinals. This was at -4 until they got their butts beat at home by Baltimore. This is the game that's going to tell you if the Rams are going to be a playoff contender or not. I'm leaning not, but if they don't cover this spread or even win this game, they are donezo. Seattle is going to get the wild card. And, well, actually, it could be San Fran getting the wild card. I mean, these teams have like 1 or 2 losses apiece, I think. One has 1 and one has 2, I believe. So that's going to be an interesting run of the division here. But this Rams team should show some desperation. Everyone said about McVay before. Everyone's starting to question that now. Jared Goff, he's fraudulent. He's not a top 20 quarterback. That's not good. The Raiders at the Chiefs is hanging around +10, and I lean to the over 51.5. Which Raiders team are we getting this time? The one that got their asses kicked by the Jets and the Vikings, or the one that beat the Bears and a couple other big teams, Chargers? Which Raiders team are we getting? That's a question. So they're a little bit. I lean the +10 here. I didn't make a play on it, but I lean it. And the Chargers are going to Denver, and now that spread is to -3, and it was at 2.5 for a while. Denver's coming off the bye. No, sorry, the Chargers are coming off the bye. Denver's coming off that loss in Buffalo, but Denver is just a much better team at Mile High Stadium. So probably not going to get involved in this game. I didn't want to at 2.5. I won't at 3, but at 3.5, I might be a buyer on Denver. Patriots versus the Texans. Patriots laying 3.5 points plus 100 at Houston. So there's some money that's coming on the home dog. I understand it because I'd rather bet Bill O'Brien as a dog than a favorite, as you all know. But the Patriots offense has definitely been not showing up lately. And I think there's a lot of reason because of it. They had a lot of injuries and offensive line injuries. There's been a lot of unders and low scoring games with this Patriots team. Vikings versus Seattle. Seattle's laying 3 points at home. That's another spread that's interesting to me. The Seattle's a little bit fraudulent on defense, but how can you bet on Kirk Cousins at the same time? So another game that I did not get involved with. So that's the games for this week, and I'll get right into our plays for you. The first one we're going to go with is we're going to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving, because we have a play on the total on the Buffalo Bills versus the Dallas Cowboys here. The Bills, their defense travels. They play pretty well, and the Cowboys, they don't seem to beat people with a winning record. Now, the big thing for me here is that Buffalo, they can't really score many points. They only average 21 per game. Dallas averages about 27 points per game, but if you look at the record, it's been extremely easy. I mean, playing teams like Miami, Washington, the New York Giants, the Detroit Lions, the Eagles when they were extremely injured on defense, when their safeties and corners were all banged up, So Dallas is a little bit fraudulent too. And they're a little bit exposed to when they played the Patriots here. So, what I'm seeing is an underplay. And we took under 47 because I don't think that there's going to be many points out of Buffalo at all. I think Dallas shows up for this game, being that it's like a prime game, nationally televised, Thanksgiving Day. That's when the defense usually shows up. And Buffalo's defense show up too. So, Vander Esch is questionable, but I think he's finally going to come back and play for Dallas. I think this total is just a little bit too high because both of these teams are undervalued on defense, and Buffalo supposedly has one of the top 5 defenses in the league. We're going to go with Buffalo and Dallas under 47 points for your Thanksgiving play. Not a big play by any means, but like I said before, there doesn't seem to be a ton of value on that spread unless you're going to use that as the teaser. So I'll probably have a small play on the teaser as well as the under on the Buffalo versus Cowboys. The next game, Washington versus Carolina, and this is one we're sharing. Carolina minus 10, over-unders at 39.5. Dwayne Haskins is all you have to say about this game, really. The kid has nothing to work with either, though. He's young. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust. I'm not saying that. It's way too early to say stuff like that. But he doesn't have much to work with besides Terry McLaurin. Their offensive line is terrible. Their defense is terrible. And Washington's in a letdown spot. All right? They got their second win of the season, finally, against a terrible Lions team. And they're in a letdown spot. There's no reason to win this game. Carolina is better than Washington in yards per play by a half a yard. Not a ton there. But it would be larger if the schedules were closer because the Washington Redskins had a much easier schedule than the Carolina Panthers. Look at the public power ratings. Every single one has the Panthers favored by 11 to 13 points. If you look at the public ones. Mine have it at 14, factoring the letdown spot. So I'm right there too. But Carolina's in a tough wild card race here in the NFC, and they need this game big. Washington, they shouldn't be losing draft capital, in my opinion. I don't know if that's going to affect the way this game is coached or not. It's probably not. But at the same time, they're in a letdown spot. We're going to play Carolina -10. And I don't like laying big chalk unless there's a good reason for it. But it's a 2-star premium share play. The Jets versus the Bengals. The Bengals getting 3.5 points. Over under is 41. So there's not that many teams worse in yards per play than the Bengals, right? But the Jets are. And they fit right in to like putting them by the Bears and the Dolphins. They're 4.5 yards per play. The Bengals are actually better at 4.8, but the Jets on the road are 4.1, right? That's pretty bad. Now, the biggest worry here, if you're on the Bengals, is that the Jets are a 1.5 yard per play better than the Bengals on defense. The Bengals have the worst defense. The Jets actually have a very good run defense. So the Jets have been thriving from their defense. The totals have been under. Now, the Jets, that makes them about a 1.2 net yard advantage for the total yards per play. The biggest thing for me is that the switch back to Andy Dalton should not only motivate him to make some big plays here. I mean, he's playing for his job, I think, in the future. But it should motivate the Bengals to get their first win. I like being on teams that haven't won after 12 weeks of football. All right. My power ratings have this game as a pick 'em anyway. So I'll gladly take the 3.5 points here. I think that there's some value. And, the Bengals, they got to do it one of these days. Dalton's back. I like the play. It'd be better if AJ Green comes back, but that would be a nice surprise. But at the same time, Erickson's very capable. Boyd's very capable. And Auden Tate, if he plays, he's also pretty capable as well. So that's how we're going to play it. And I believe that the Bengals will finally cover this spread. Woo! Philadelphia versus Miami. Miami plus 9-ish. Over under is 45. This is a slump buster alert. Miami is back to playing Miami football, and they really should have no motivation to win this game. I mean, what does it accomplish for the future, to do that? So we already talked about that. They already have the worst home field advantage, and there will be some Philadelphia fans at this game. The Eagles have been in a massive slump, but finally hit the easier part of their schedule. 4 of their next 5 games are against literally tomato cans, and they're going to be double-digit favorites in lots of them. Alshon Jeffrey looks like he's coming back to help out Wentz here in those tough pass situations. And Nelson Aguilar looks like he's going to come back to stretch the field. Jordan Howard's tracking to come back. They're finally getting healthy at the right time. Philly has a 1.3 net yard per play advantage here. And I have to think that Doug Peterson's going to be ready to just put one on the Dolphins. This feels a lot like when the Eagles destroyed Buffalo recently when they went on the road and got out of a slump. So my power ratings have this game around a 10, but the situation favors the Eagles. So I think they have a great shot at the wild card still because they did beat the Packers and they beat the Bears. I like the Eagles -9, 1.5 star premium share play on this one.
Have you found Jesus yet, Doug?
I didn't know I was supposed to be looking for him, sir.
All right. Now let's get right into
the sharp side of the force.
Sharp Side of the Force is brought to you by uwager.lv. For a 50% bonus, please visit uwager. Use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms and conditions apply. All right, we're going to start out with sharp college sides. Penn State, 26% difference between ticket total and money facing Eastern Michigan. The sharp money was on Kent State at +5.5. It's down to +4.5. Next, we have sharp money on Washington from -6.5 to -7.5, a 27% difference between ticket total and money. I disagree with that one. Sharp money on Bowling Green at plus 29 at Buffalo. 40% difference between ticket total and money. Sharp money on TCU hosting West Virginia. A 32% difference between ticket count and money. And we agree with that one, as you know. Sharp money on South Florida from plus 24.5 down to plus 23.5 at Central Florida. A 40% difference between ticket total and money. Sharp money on Colorado State hosting Boise State at plus 14. A 41% difference between ticket total and money. We have sharp money on Southern Miss at plus 8.5. A 44% difference. Sharp money on Cal from plus 2 to plus 1.5, a 23% difference. Sharp money on Wyoming, plus 10.5 at Air Force, a 30% difference on that one. Sharp money on Louisiana Monroe at Louisiana Lafayette from plus 21 to plus 20, a 31% difference. Sharp money on Louisiana Tech hosting Texas San Antonio, a 20% difference between ticket total and money. Sharp money on New Mexico hosting Utah State from plus 13 down to plus 11.5, a 40% difference between ticket count and money. Sharp money on Tulane at SMU from plus 5 down to plus 3.5, a 21% difference between ticket total and money. Sharp money on Georgia Tech at plus 28, and that thing's been sitting at plus 28, a 23% difference between ticket count and money. Sharp money on South Alabama hosting Arkansas State from plus 12.5 to plus 11, a 44% difference between ticket count and money. Looks like a numbers grab to me. Sharp money on Boston College at Pittsburgh at plus 9, a 36% difference. Sharp money on New Mexico State at Liberty at plus 14, a 26% difference. A lot of games this week, no buys. Sharp money on Syracuse at plus 4.5, a 28% difference. Sharp money on Rice, actually dual action on Rice, from minus 6.5 to minus 7. 71% of the tickets are on Rice, and 99% of the money is on Rice. Sharp money on Northwestern from plus 10.5 down to plus 8 at Illinois, a 38% difference. Sharp money on Miami from minus 6.5 to minus 9 at Duke, a 22% difference. Sharp money on Charlotte, actually dual action on Charlotte at Old Dominion, minus 8.5 to minus 9.5, a 20% difference, but 76% of the tickets are on Charlotte, but 96% of the money is also on Charlotte. Sharp money on UConn at plus 28 at Temple, a 23% difference. Sharp money on UNLV from plus 7.5 down to plus 11, plus 100, a 24% difference. Sharp money on Arizona at plus 13.5 at Arizona State, a 30% difference. Sharp money on Wisconsin, minus 2.5 to minus 3, a 28% difference. Sharp totals. No, this is sharp. Sharp action on the over Kent State at Eastern Michigan. Over 65 to 66.5. 99% of the money is on the over, but 47% of the tickets are on the over. So a 52% difference there. Pretty big. We have sharp money on the over on Iowa versus Nebraska. Over 44.5. A 32% difference between ticket count and money. Interesting there. And I agree with that one, actually. Sharp money on the under, Bowling Green versus Buffalo from 53.5 down to 51.5, a 40% difference. Dual action on the Oregon State versus Oregon under from 68 down to 66. 69% of the tickets are on the under, but 98% of the money. Sharp money on the under, Colorado at Utah under 49. A 45% difference there. Supposed to get some bad weather, I hear there. Sharp money on the over, North Carolina at NC State. And that's actually dual action. 81% of the tickets are on the over and 98% of the money. Sharp money on the under on Clemson at South Carolina, under 51. A 38% difference between ticket count and money. Sharp money on the over Georgia at Georgia Tech over 46.5. A 36% difference between ticket count and money. And sharp money on the under Appalachian State at Troy under 62.5. A 50% difference between ticket count and money. I don't like that one. Both these teams can score. And then we're doing this a little earlier than normal, by the way, so not all things are completely registering. Texas A&M at LSU, sharp money on the over 61 all the way up to 64. Sharp money on the under Arizona at Arizona State under 59, a 41% difference. And dual action on the BYU versus San Diego State under 39. 41 down to 39, actually. 93% of the tickets are on the under, but 96% of the money is on the under. Also, same thing with Army at Hawaii. Sharp money on the under 55. 71% of the tickets are on the under, and 97% of the money. Let's get into sharp NFL sides. We have sharp money on the Vikings at Seahawks at +3, a 26% difference there. Sharp money on the Eagles at -10, a 23% difference. And they're playing at Miami, as we know. And that's about it for the sides that are telling anyway this early. Let's look at the totals. There's some sharp money on the over at Vikings at Seattle, over 49. There's some a little bit of dual action on the Chargers versus Broncos under 38.5. 88% of the money's on the under. 60% of the tickets are on the under. Sharp action on the under and the Redskins versus Panthers under 39.5. A 39% difference there. Sharp money on the under on the Browns versus Steelers under 39, a 33% difference. Dual action on the over, Rams at Cardinals over 47.5. 67% of the tickets on the over, 96% of the money is on the over. And dual action on the Bucks versus the Jags here. I'm sorry, it's sharp action, 30%. We have 45% of the tickets are on the under 47.5. That's what it is. And 75% of the money is on the under. So there you have it. That's your NFL sharp action. Hope you enjoyed the quick podcast. We wanted to get it out early so you can enjoy your Thanksgiving and possibly get this before the games start. Have a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday. Hope you are all safe, and remember to go get some winners.